Welcome to our virtual sew fun presentation today for July 2022. And my name is Gail Mikashonis, and my partner over here is Lana Jones. And this is brought to you by Quality Sewing and Vacuum in the Pacific Northwest. We have 11 store locations. Our sew fun education team goes to each of these locations 11 months out of the year and puts on this presentation in person. So you can join us at one of those locations if you would choose. If you get a chance to come, we'd love to see you. Products shown today will be on the website until August 6th. And at the discounted sew fun price. After that, they're going to go back to regular price. You can choose to have your orders picked up or shipped, and all orders over $100 ship for free. So there will be 2 gifts that will be drawn for. To enter for a chance to win, please comment, like, or share, and we will announce at the end of the virtual presentation what these winners will be. All right. Lana is going to start with our first demonstration.
Okay, I want to start out with this So Steady Wish table. This is my favorite table that they have. There is one bigger and there's some smaller, but I love this one because it's the size. It has this nice drawer that you can put all your goodies in. You can actually see them so that you know what you're looking for. So this is awesome. So I want to show you a couple reasons why I love this table. First of all, when you are sewing and you're stitching together pieces, and you have all your blocks done, and then you're sewing those blocks to other blocks, the one on the back, as you're sewing together, the seam will flip. That's because it's hitting the throat plate. So what I do with my So Steady table is I take the little feet and I turn them up so that the table is lifted up just a little bit higher than my throat plate, so that as I'm stitching and there's seams on the back, the seams don't flip because it's hit the throat plate. Okay, and when I need to do ruler work, I just lower it back down so everything is even. So that's one way that I make sure that my seams on the back don't flip. I also want to show you how I set my table up so that it works for me. One of the things I like to do is I want a line right here. Okay, so I know what straight is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the thread from my machine. I'm going to pass it underneath my So Steady table, line it up with the line right there. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it forward to number 10. Make sure your table is all the way to the right. Line it up right there with number 10. I'm going to tape this here for just a second. When that's all lined up, I'm going to take another piece of Scotch tape and I'm going to tape this, whoops, get my fingernail out of the way. I'm going to tape this from all the way back at the throat plate, all the way to the very front of my table. Then I'll cut the thread off here, and of course at home I would do a much better job than I did here. Cut this off, and now I have a perfectly straight line as my guide as I'm sewing, and this will stay on my So Steady table forever and ever and ever till I get another machine and need a new So Steady table. So that's always my guide. So let me show you how I use that. When I'm sewing together strips for my projects, I'm going to quilt this little, put a little binding on this little quilt piece here, and I'm going to let this line help me. When I'm sewing my strips together, I'm going to put one pretty side down. Oops. Oops, excuse me, pretty side up. The other one pretty side down. And I'm going to offset the pieces of fabric by just a little bit, 1/8 of an inch or so, just enough so that you can see these intersections, okay, on the pieces. Then I'm going to put needle down. Oops. Better start my machine up here, right? I like to use a 2.0 stitch length when I'm doing this, no back stitching. I'm going to put my needle down, my foot down. Put my foot down. Once I get this intersection butted right up against the needle. Okay, put my foot down. I'm going to take this intersection and line it up with that new line I just put on my sew steady table. And now I'm going to sew my seam right across here. Once I leave this line, I'm picking up the line on my throat plate so that I know I'm going straight over to the other intersection. Now, if I was doing a whole bunch of these, I'd chain them all together. I'd flip the next one, put the piece on, chain it together, and do one right after the other. If I was chaining a whole bunch together, I would go to my sewing table and use my rotary cutter and ruler and cut a straight line across there. But for just this one, I am just going to trim it with these scissors. Trim it to 1/4 inch. And I'm a presser. I press and press and press and press again and press some more. Okay, if you're not pressing a bunch, you should be. And what I like to do is at my sewing table, or right next to my machine, I like to have a little wool pressing mat so I can press. I usually have it down on the side, so I can press my stuff without having to get up for every little thing to my big iron. I can press right here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use this cute little iron. This we have this on our list today. This cute little Dritz iron. It has lots of steam. It's a great little iron. And it's perfect for sitting by your sewing machine. The first thing I'm going to do is press this how it was sewn so I can sink the threads down into the fabric. And then I'm going to press the seam open. Oops. Oops. And press that seam open. And I would do that for every single seam that I did. So, oops, let me get my little fabric here. So, after I get that done, now I'm ready to put it on my little quilt block here. But before I do that, I want to show you something else I love about these little wool mats. When you are sewing on them, or pressing on them, excuse me, it holds the fabric so the fabric doesn't move, especially if you have half square triangles. You've got all that bias, and when you press, that fabric just doesn't move. It stays where it belongs as you're pressing so you don't damage what you just cut out. But also, as you're doing all this pressing, you get a lot of little pieces of lint, and if you've ever tried to take that off with a lint roller, they don't come off because they start to embed themselves in the fuzz of the wool. So I like to take this little fabric comb, and what I do is I'm going to comb my wool mat, my wool mat, until I get all the little pieces of fuzz and the little threads, and I can just pull them right off and get rid of them instead of trying to lift them up with a sticky roller paper. So that works really, really well. So on my fob here, I'm going to move my needle over so that I have a 1/2 inch seam. Okay, and I can do that because I have a 9mm opening on my foot, and that allows me to use the edge of my foot for my seam. Now, I like a 1/2 inch binding on my quilts. I know a lot of people do a 1/4 inch, but I like a 1/2 inch. I think they're easier to put on, and I like the look of them better. So with my 9mm opening, I have a much wider foot, so I can move my needle all the way over to the edge, almost to the edge. I think I have like 1 millimeter of space left. The next thing I want to know is from my needle forward where a 1/2 inch is, because as I stitch my binding on, I have to stop a 1/2 inch from the edge so that I can turn the corner. On a fob, and it has been all the way back to my 7570, from the needle to the edge of the metal is exactly a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to move this stuff here for just a second here.
So Lana, real quick, Deborah was asking, is it a good idea to iron on your acrylic table with the wool mat?
Well, it's not going to hurt it, but I usually have it down on the side. But just for show right now, I had it up here. It was easier for me. But normally at home, everything's to the side here. I don't iron on top of here. But you can tell it didn't get warm at all from doing that because they're pretty thick. All right. So when I start my projects and doing my projects, I start someplace in the middle, but not exactly the middle, because your eye is always drawn to the center. And so I start offset just a little bit, and the first 6 inches are not sewn. Okay. So I'm going to start, well, let's see, let's go right here. Here. And I'm going to sew. Now I know that a 1/2 inch is at the edge of my throat plate, so I know that when I stop, I'm going to stop with the edge of my project at the edge of that metal. Okay. Now I'm going to lift this up so you can see when I have to stop here. Right there. Okay, my edge of my project is at the edge of my metal, and I'm doing a 1/2 inch seam binding, so that's a 1/2 inch. And here is where I will backstitch. Whoops. And cut. All right, so then I'm going to turn this up. And I don't have any pins right here, so I would just pretend I have a pin. I'm going to turn this up so that I have my 45-degree angle here, and I would put a pin right here. And then I'm going to flip it this way and put a pin. Now you'll notice that one of my seams of putting this all together is right in the middle of my, oh, thank you very much, dear, is right in the middle of my mitered corner. I don't worry about that. Those are pressed nice and flat. I don't have to worry about it. If I try to avoid that, it's going to wind up winding up in another corner, so I just ignore it and pretend it's not there. Okay, and then I am going to backstitch. Oh, somebody has set this for something different than I want here. I didn't check that out. I apologize for that. So let me just go up here, and we'll just not do the back stitch because I will not so you want to back stitch there. And I will go to the other end and do the whole thing again. Okay, and when I am done, then I will press this and open this up, and now I have a perfect miter in the corner here, and that will also be pressed. Let me pop that backwards, and that will also be pressed, and I have a nice corner there as well. Okay. All right, so another reason to use the line on my table is as I am making little squares. On this case, I am going to be using Stitch and Steam. What Stitch and Steam is, it's a very lightweight, it's the white fabric that's on the back here. It's a very lightweight fabric, but when you apply steam to it, it shrinks, okay? So what we've done is we've done a bunch of stitching on here, and you can see all the stitch lines, okay? And when we apply heat to this, it will shrink. I'm going to do this last line through the center. And this is another place that I use the center line on my Sew Steady table. Come back here. Oops, come back. Okay. And I am going to line up this corner with my needle and this corner with the new line I created on my table. And I'm just going to stitch all the way to the other end, keeping my corner in line with that new line until I get to the other end. Okay. Now with the steam on the back of the stitch and steam on the back of this, I can apply steam. Oops. Hit the right button here. To this, and this will shrink up. Oh, are we out of water on this? Oh, there it goes. Just didn't hold it long enough. Okay, and then after we steam that, then we have nice texture to our fabric. Okay, I'm going to hand this over to Gail, and she'll show you what we made with that.
All right. So we're going to use this little square, and we're going to make this into a covered button. So we have the Dritz half ball covered buttons. You get 2 in a package. And you can take this or any other type of fabric, and you can make your own covered buttons. So we just kind of wrap around the corner and hook into those little teeth. No tool required. I like to do opposite corners. And then I'll tuck in my little edges here. Just like that. And then I'll take the back and I will give it a good push, and that is going to snap into a covered button. So what did we do with this button? Well, we have some patterns here that I'm going to share with you, and they use the serger to make a couple fun projects, and they're both from Barbara Goldcorn, and we use that covered button on the clutch bag. So in addition to some ruffles with rolled edges and some chain stitches and some other fun designs, they're using a fringe stitch. And I'm going to share how to do that fringe stitch today. There's a pillow and a clutch bag, and we'll show you the samples on these patterns here in a moment. But this is the Bernina L860, and this is a beautiful air threading machine from Bernina, and it is very intuitive because all of the information that you need to thread the machine is right here on the screen. So this is going to be a 4-thread overlock machine, but they also make an L890, which is a 5-thread, which will give you those cover stitches and chain stitches, also using this amazing screen. So we're going to start out by choosing a button up here at the top, and it's going to ask me which stitch I want to use. There's 30 different stitches built into this machine, and I'm going to choose stitch number 9, and it tells me all of the different settings that I need to set my machine on. Now this is kind of the quick guide at a glance. If I don't know what all of these tools are, or if I'm just getting used to this machine, I can choose the guided button, and it's going to do each one separately. So it's going to tell me where I need to go. Maybe I don't remember how to adjust my presser foot pressure. Then I can touch the little video button, and it's going to tell me exactly where that lands on my machine and what it does. So it's very, very intuitive and interactive. So the other thing that this machine will do, after I've gone through all of these screens, the machine is already set up for that. It tells me how to thread and what my thread paths are going to be. And it's going to set my tensions for me right inside the machine. I can choose to make this machine needle up, needle down. So if I want to stop and have my project in the machine still with the needle down, maybe I want to manipulate something, that's going to be very secure. I can also change my differential, which is my feeding, gathering, or stretching, or my stitch length right on board. So I'm going to change my stitch length to make it just a little bit shorter. Okay, so how to thread the machine. We're going to open the little door here. I had threads in there previously, so I'm going to raise the presser foot, and I have cut them up here. I'm just going to pull them right out, which they pull out every time. It's amazing. They don't get caught, they don't get stuck. All right, my looper thread, it told me I needed to go into the red. So everywhere there's red, I'm going to follow that along. I'm going to open the other door and engage my air tubes. So because this stops needle up or needle down, my tubes are ready to go. My foot control is actually going to control the motor on this machine, which is my air motor, and it's very, very quiet. But I need a little bit of slack in my thread, and then I'm going to aim it towards that red hole, and it's going to shoot out of my little lower looper over here. Push on the gas, and it's going to suck it in for me. So it really does, you know, you don't have to shove it down the hole. You just hold it anywhere near and off it goes. So it has threaded that one for me. I'll disengage those air tubes, and then I'll do the needle. So the needle is going to be threaded in the same position, which means I don't have to turn my hand wheel. And this one is yellow. Everywhere there is yellow. I will follow that along and thread the needle. Now all of my tools, my tweezers, my needle threader, my extra needles, my needle changer, all of those tools are right handy in my drawer, or my door here. And if I need to put the needle I'm not using somewhere, I can stick it in one of these little sponge things. They've really thought of everything. And if I need to get to my needle a little bit easier, I can just swing my presser foot out of the way. So we'll go ahead and thread this needle. Yeah, you guys are watching too close, I can tell. There we go. There's that little hook. And get that tail out of there. All right, just put that back where it belongs and close all my doors. Now, if you don't happen to have this machine and you want a fine, tiny little pair of tweezers like this, we also have those for sale today, and they're on this fun little container here, and they're those fine tip pointy tweezers. So pick yourself up a couple pair of those, and looks very retro. Huh. Okay, so this machine goes up to a 6mm stitch. I need to shift over here just a little bit. And what I'm going to do, this stitch that I chose is a 2-thread wrapped overlock stitch. So I'm going to do that on a fold of fabric. And let's get it in here, press your foot down. I have my knife up, but I'm not going to actually cut that fold. I am going to use that as a guide, so I know exactly where my fabric is going. And look at that beautiful wide stitch. So what this stitch does, is it takes that light blue thread, which is my looper thread, and this is a little bit heavier thread, and it wraps it all the way to the back, and then I've got a little bit of that needle thread showing. So my heavy ends here. So I'm going to then take this over to the sewing machine. And I'm going to pick a very narrow zigzag stitch. And I'm going to zigzag stitch right down over those needle threads. So I can secure those needle threads. Might be a good idea to do this with an open toe foot so you can get, you know, all that, be able to see all of that. There we go. Now I did it twice, and I would also do it in my project with matching thread rather than contrasting thread. But so you guys can see it here on camera, I've gone back and forth with that pink. And then I can flip this over and I can cut those needle threads. And they release that, and once all of these little extra pieces get out of the way, I have big, beautiful, long fringe. So that fringe was used to make the projects. Now I used a little bit different type of thread for this one, but there's that covered button, there's some chain stitches, there's that fringe, we've got gathers, we've got rolled hem, we've got a 3-thread overlock. All of those stitches come out beautiful on this machine, as well as any other serger. So check it out and check out these patterns. So Lana is going to talk about her clutch and also the fringed pillow patterns.
Okay, so this is the clutch purse that I made like Gail's. I didn't use as big a piece of placemat. We're using the Nozzle craft place mat as our base for our clutch bag. And this is how big it is. And so Gail folded hers in half and did hers, not in half, excuse me, in thirds, and made her purse. Okay, I didn't want mine as big. Yeah, you want to bring yours over, Gail? I didn't want mine as big as this, so I cut mine down to a little smaller size. Okay, now I don't have that beautiful Bernina. I have an older Pfaff serger, and I was able to do the fringe stitch. Not quite like Gail was able to do hers, but I was able to use the flat hem on the my old Pfaff serger, and still got a nice fringe off of that for my project. So I did the fringe with my older Pfaff. I made my button. I did the rolled hem. I did the seaming on the side, and still got a great project out of that, even with my not fancy machine serger. Okay, so this is how my fringe turned out. Not as big, probably less than half the size, but it still worked. I was still able to do that. Okay, would love to have that bigger fringe, but this is what I have. Okay, I also did the pillow pattern. Okay, the fringed pillow, and did the flat lock on here. I did the chain stitch. I did the fringe stitch. I did the rolled hem on the side. Now you can use your serger for gathering. My older Pfaff does not gather well. The foot that came with it at the time didn't do a great gather, so I did gather it on my sewing machine. But I really like the looks of that, all the serger projects, ideas that were done on here. So just a couple of great projects to get you using your serger a lot. Okay, the next book we want to talk about, or the first book I should say, is our tie-dye book. And this was a lot of fun to do. I have dyed things over the years, but I've never tie-dyed clothing and things like that. And I thought that this would be a super fun book to do. A lot of great instructions on different types of dyes to use and how to use them, and some great projects to go with it. So an excellent book if you want to get into tie-dyeing. We also brought in a tie-dye kit, and it is surprising how much dye that is in here. You can get a lot of items dyed with this small little kit in these beautiful colors. You can also mix the colors. To help you out with your coloring, we brought in the color wheel. And if you don't have a color wheel in your studio, and now your studio might just be your kitchen table, but at the moment that you're working, that is your studio, okay? And you should always have a color wheel. And I've had this happen so much, and Gail, you may have too. You're in the store, a fabric store, and someone walks up to you and go, Lana, come over here. Could you help me put these fabrics together and see if they work? I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. I would be struggling just like you. I kind of guess. And so I usually use a color wheel. I have several of them in different areas of my studio, so that I can grab a color wheel and go, oh yeah, I want to use this blue. What goes with it? Oh yeah, this color over here. Or you can use some of the triads or different things that they have on the back. So the colors that work. Now my mom, she was an artist. She could pick any color out, and you would go, those are ugly. But she would make them work, and beautifully. I can't do that. I'm using a color wheel when I do that. And I think it would really help if you had one in your studio if you struggle with colors. The other thing that helps with colors is the color scope. And although I can't have you see through this, through the camera, the color scope lets you take colors, like you can see these three skeins of yarn on the side here. And when you put this color scope up to it, it lets you see what is the dominant color. It lets you see as if all those pieces are sewn together like a quilt, and you can see if that will work for your project. It is like a kaleidoscope, except that you don't turn it around and that type of thing. But you can look through it and see what's going to work together. And I think that a color wheel and the color scope are a great value to your studio. So some of the projects that I did with tie-dyeing, I'm going to start out with these little coasters. A lot of people are making rope bowls and rope coasters these days. I'm right in there with everybody else. I've been having a blast doing that. And so I used the tie-dye. This blue, I actually dyed a while ago at Christmas time when I was making coasters at Christmas time. And when we got the tie-dye kit, I decided to make some more. And I had some of this teal and some of the blue left, and I made this one. One of the things that, a tip that I picked up from somebody online for tie-dyeing, and I'm going to use it also with my coasters, is one of our customers had a link to a really amazing t-shirt that was tie-dyed. And although I wanted that look, and I tried, and I totally failed, and I'll show you my failure. But I really wanted that look she had. One of the tips on her little video was to take a pair of hemostats and put it in the center of where you want your spiral to start, and clip it, and then twist it. Now you have control of your t-shirt without having to use your fingers to twist it. You have control of your t-shirt, and you have very easily can spread that out. So I use the hemostats, but I also use the hemostats when I'm starting my rope bowls. Okay, I see a lot of people doing it with their fingers and stuff, but I just don't have good control. So I start my rope bowl with a hemostat, and then I start to twist with it because it holds it well. And then while I'm holding that, I can pin it to get it started. So hemostats come in very handy for that. So I want to show you a couple things that I tie-dyed. I'm going to start out with the failure. This one that was on online. It was amazing. When the lady opened it up, it was rich in reds and blacks, and it was gorgeous. She didn't have any information. It was just a quick video, no words. So I'm going to have to research and find out how she did this. But here's my failure. And although it looks okay, it isn't. Hers was just, her little designs were almost precise, like they'd been painted on there. They were exquisite. This is now just a work shirt for me, a total failure, not what I wanted, but it was actually the very first t-shirt I've ever done a tie-dye on, so it didn't turn out too bad. It was okay, a good test. This one was the next one I did, and the one thing I don't like about tie-dye is probably why I never did it, is I don't like that spiral right in the middle. It's like a bullet right to the center. And so I decided to start my twist up in the shoulder. And so instead of having that bullseye right in the middle, I started it at the shoulder so it would tie-dye down, and the twist is up in the shoulder. And I like that a whole lot better than starting it in the middle. I also did this t-shirt. And this one is called Sun Flare. And what you do with this one is you start to pinch it. You draw an arc, something that will wash away, and you start to pinch it, and then you rubber band it. And then every couple of inches, you rubber band it again. Now, I think I should have done my rubber bands tighter because my lines aren't really defined, but still I like the look of it because it's not in the middle. It actually looks like it starts from down here and the rays go up. So I really like the look of that. I thought that one was super fun to do.
So Lana, what dyes did you use to make that shirt?
This tie-dye right here. Okay. Both of these shirts were done with this tie-dye, and I still had lots left over after I dyed them. So great tie-dye and very easy because all you're going to do is the soda ash is already in here, and all you're going to do is fill water up to this line, shake it, and you're ready to dye. I mean, it couldn't be any simpler. It's very, very easy to do. Now, the one I really liked was in the book. It talks about dyeing synthetics, and you can use these dyes on synthetics, but you won't be happy with it. They'll be very faded. Although I have used them, and the look is very unique. It's just not rich in color, and you're going to have to expect that if you want this blue, you're going to get a really, 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 really pale blue if you try to dye a synthetic. So you want to use something like Rit Dye More. And Rit Dye More is made for synthetics. And so in the book, they talked about doing a swimming suit, and I thought, well, I'm not going to go buy a swimming suit to dye, a white swimming suit to dye. So I went to the local craft store, and they had little onesies that were 100% synthetic, and 95% synthetically. And then I went to the Dollar Tree store and got some little sakis. And so I did this little onesie. with Rit Dye more, and I love how that turned out. Now, the bottle is purple. I have never gotten purple out of a Rit Dye more, or that rich a color. And maybe it's because I really don't know what I'm doing, but I've never gotten that rich one. I've always gotten a faded down version. But still, I'm pleased with the color. I just thought that little onesie turned out adorable. And again, I started the twist up in the shoulder. I also just wrinkled up these socks and put a rubber band around it and threw it in the dye pot, and they turned out so cute. Now, to use that Rit Dye more, it says to pour the dye in a steel pan, and you will not use that steel pan ever again for cooking. Once you use it for dye, it's for dye. And then buy some tongs that will only be used. So just get a cheap pair of tongs, and you'll be using those for tie dyeing, and then put them away and don't use them for cooking. And then you're going to bring that up, and I can't remember if it's 200 or 300 degrees, and then you'll throw all your stuff in there, and you'll just stir it and simmer it basically for about a half an hour. And then you get your beautiful colors out of that. So really fun to do that.
So Lana, the colors in the dye kit, question came in, can those be mixed?
Yes, you can mix them. You can either mix the powder, or you can mix the two colors in another bottle. So absolutely, you can mix them. Okay, I also had my daughter-in-law to be, I'm so excited. She does amazing macrame. And I asked her if in the book it has a couple of macrame keychains at the end. And I said, would you make those for me? I have never asked anybody to make anything for me for so fun. But she does such a beautiful macrame. I thought, I'm going to see if she'll make those for me. And she did. Then I proceeded to destroy them when I dyed them. My son called a couple days later. He goes, hey, Mom, how did those keychains turn out? And I went, yeah, they're fine. I have to fix them. Talk to you later. Bye. Because I don't know what I did. They just didn't turn out. And so I started reading online to try to find out how I could fix them. And everything said just bleach them. So I threw them in the washing machine and poured a bunch of bleach in there and just let them set and bleached them. And they really did turn out a whole lot better. I don't know what I did, but the colors just looked sloppy when I tied them. So I haven't shown them to her yet. But I did this one. This one, what I was trying to do is get it like the book, because the book shows only half of the item dyed. And because I'm not a dyeing professional, I really didn't know how to do that. So I dyed half of it, and it looked great until I went to wash it out. And then the dye started running. And now it's not half and half. So I've got some work I've got to do to figure that out. But after I bleached it, it was red. After I bleached it, it really turned out much nicer and softer. And then this one was a total mess. Colors were running everywhere. After I bleached it, it really actually turned out much, much nicer. So the bleach really helped. And then I love this one after I bleached it, because the ends kind of turned whitish, and I thought that looked really, really cute. And I really wanted this to be white, gray, and then black, but I kind of got a grayish kind of thing going on, and that turned out pretty cute as well after I bleached it. Same with this one. And, I should show you the front. And the one I'm really most disappointed in, although after I bleached it, this looked pretty good, is some of the dye, after it ran, got on the wood piece up here. So now I'm going to have to dye that wood piece to get rid, so you don't see that overspill of dye on there. So anyway, she did a beautiful job. I destroyed them. I think I fixed it for the most part, but I'll let her look at them now that they look a whole lot better. Okay, so Gail's going to show you her tie-dyeing.
All right, thank you. Sounds like you had a lot of fun. I know I did. I love to dye. So I knew that once I added water to my dye kit, and I had two dyeing process, or 2 days that I did dye. The first one was with this kit, and I knew once I added water all the way to the top, I didn't think about just taking out some of the powder, but you know, very literal. Add water to here, that I had a limited time. So it does have a life. It does expire. It you know, kind of burns itself out, or whatever you want to call it. So do plan on using it as you mix it up. But I added water to all of these. I had some other bottles, and I started mixing and matching. So I'd take a couple drops of this and another one of that, and I was able to recreate the entire color wheel here and get all of these different shades. So once I decided what shades I really wanted to play with, the lime green, the teal, the purple, I made some secondary bottles of mix, and then I just started in. Now I had all of my stuff prepared, and I dyed probably way more than I should have with this one bottle. I kind of pushed it a little bit far. And the other thing, in all the dyeing I've done before, you soak your stuff in the soda ash ahead of time. So in my mind, even though I didn't have to soak it in soda ash, everything needed to be wet to start with. So all of mine, that just adds a little bit more water to the process, and it diluted everything. Makes them bleed really nice, but it also made everything come out very pale. So Lana got beautiful, vibrant colors. I believe you did yours dry.
No, I did mine wet.
Yours, your clothes were started out wet? Oh,
Yep.
Okay. But in the book, they talked about all these different things. So I have a hat, wherever my hat went, up here. I have a pair of shoes. Again, this is where I could have used a little bit more dye. Now it says it'll do 9 projects. 9 projects is, you know, maybe 9 t-shirts or something along that line, but I like to do yardage. So I had several pieces that were maybe a 1/4 yard of fabric or a 1/2 yard of fabric, and the tie-dye process, the tie-dye of the dye means to bind it, and you can bind in all different ways. So, you know, you've got the spirals, you've even got some different folds, and depending on what you, how you fold it, you get different patterns. So this one happened to be accordion folded like that and bound with rubber bands. You can also bind them with plates on the front and back to limit the color. Then all the color gets into is just the parts that are exposed. All the parts that are down inside, the dye doesn't soak into, so you get those white and colored patterns. So this one was actually that spiral. So in addition to the shoes, the hat, and the yardage, I did some fabric, I did some yarn. And this is 100% cotton, peaches and cream. So these are all going to be natural fibers. You've got cottons, you can do wool, you can do silk, you can do bamboo, you can do all sorts of different 100% natural fibers and get a good result with this tie-dye kit. But I did do a shirt. Now the shirt started out orange. So all of the color, in addition to that peachy orange color, is the dye. And I did a large chunk of t-shirt knit, white, because I knew that I wanted to make something out of that. So we have a shirt pattern to talk about today, and this is the chunk of fabric that I dyed for that shirt. So I had my teal, my lime green, and my purple. And because I didn't have a lot of dye, because I used it on so many projects, I did lose some of the color. It washed out. So the shirt itself is supposed to be 2 colors, so I left a piece white before I dyed up the rest of it.
So Gail, on your yardage, was that fabric completely white before you tie-dyed it?
Yes. And I did a knit, and I also did the other yardage pieces ended up in my table runner. So I came up with rainbow colors. Those were all hand dyed. So, excuse me. Not everything that goes into the dye pot, and I did, like I said, the tie-dye day. I did a second day where I did a bucket full of dye. Not everything that goes in there is going to come out the same color. And it's not even going to all be the same color as the water. So I chose for my second day a Procyon dye. And Procyon dye is fiber reactive. It works on natural fibers. But you do the soda ash step, and then you do the dye. And it all went into one big bucket. So the items that went in there were this t-shirt. Now this started out as a white t-shirt. It was a thrift store find. It already had all of the crystals and the paint and the ribbons and everything on it already. I just over-dyed it. I actually was able to locate it. Somebody had turned it in to Goodwill because they had a stain on it. Well, you can cover up those stains when you do the dyeing. So here's where the polyester ribbon and the other things didn't dye the same way. Lana was talking about very, very pale. This all was in the bucket at the same time. So you get different saturations. Now the dark to light, that was on purpose. I actually had this part soaking in the dye a lot less time than I had this. I just had it in that bucket upside down, and I'd squeeze out some dye and stick it over the edge of the bucket a little bit at a time. So while this was in about 10 minutes, this was in about 3 hours. So also in that same bucket was this fabric, which is a Sweatshirt Fleece, which is 100% cotton as well. Before it went into the bucket, it looked like this. It was white with the navy paint, and when it came out, it was colored. In order to get the two-color look on this one, I just used the opposite side of the fabric. So I figure, you know, you pay for both sides, you might as well use them both, right? Okay. In the same bucket was the socks, and I thought they were going to kind of match my shirt and my hat, but it came out a different color. So, you know, you never know what you're going to get. And then the last piece that I actually dyed was a chunk of silk, and this is called Silk Knoll. It's a lumpy, kind of a raw silk, but this was in the same bucket as the socks. And you really, I got turquoise and I got green, and it was teal dye, so who knew? So when I dye mine, I just kind of have a general idea of where I want to go, and I have no specific plans. So if I am expecting this shade, then I'm going to be disappointed. But if I just, you know, play with whatever I end up with, then I'm happy. So, all right. So I mentioned the opposites attract. Oh, I have one more dyeing thing here. So in here, they have reverse dyeing. So Lana mentioned bleach. This one you start out with a black item or very dark, and you bleach out parts of it, and then you turn around and re-dye them. So we did that. I did that anyway, right here. So sprinkled it with bleach. I had it on a little clip hanger that I had hanging in the bathtub, and I just squirted it with regular 100% Clorox bleach, and it ran. So I got that nice blotchy look, or streaked look. And then it went in that dye pot. So it only had the one color dyed over the top. I think I'm going to go back and add some more colors, and, you know, give it a little bit more splash. But the nice thing about that, you know, you bleach it again, you dye it again, you just keep going until you've either got, you know, nothing left from the bleach, or you've got brown. Yeah, you add too many colors and you're just going to get mud. But all right, let me talk about this shirt really quick. This is from Dana Marie Designs, and this is called Opposites Attract. This is a multi-sized pattern, and it runs sizes extra, extra small to triple extra large. And with the two sides, you have kind of an asymmetrical look. You also have a high hem on one side and a long hem on the other. So I took that yardage that I dyed, and this one is cut as an extra large. They're generous sizing. I did not need to have an extra large. It needs to be maybe a large. I'm a large. But I wear it anyway. So I've got the short hem on this side, and I've got the long hem on this side. Now, I like the look. I like the two different colors. But if you're not an asymmetrical look type person, the back is cut on a fold, which means this part of the hem and this part of the hem are exactly the same length. So if I want both sides to be short, I'm just going to cut 2 pieces out of this pattern piece. And if I want both sides to be large or long, I'm going to have them both cut out of this pattern piece. So this does not have to be a short and long process. So very, very cute, very easy to wear. Short sleeve, long sleeve. When I dyed my yarn, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I sometimes don't. I just throw it in the pot. We'll see what happens. But I ended up using it as you go around the facing. So some of these, there's 2 different ways to do the pattern on there. One is with a facing and one is with a binding. And as you sew the facing to the front and roll it to the back, you need to tack it down somehow so it doesn't flip. And so I just used that yarn. I couched it down with a zigzag, and it just gave me a little bit of extra color along that line. So I thought it was fun. Buttons, no buttons, short sleeve, long sleeve. Lots and lots of different options for that. And again, this one was the front and the back of the fabric. And this one has the binding. Long sleeves. Very easy to put together, especially when you bind it. And don't even have to deal with the facings. So you need a purse. Oh, that's in the book. Wait.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to do that.
Oh.
Okay, so I did opposites attract on a linen, or I think it's a linen-like fabric. I'm trying to use up my stash, so I went in there looking for, I knew I had this great piece of linen, could not find it, of course, and so I had a choice of the 2 I found, which was brown and this olive green, and I thought, okay, olive green then. And what I did was I took this design called Layered Leaves, and there's a whole bunch of designs on the back, and it's a very light design, sort of. And I took a bunch of the designs, started with one of the largest ones, and I just put them all together to do the patterned side of the top. And it took 7 hoopings, and I want to say I can never remember that number, 7 hoopings, 212,524 stitches. Now, when I did this in the hoop of my software, okay, I don't want to put stitches out here when I'm stitching this because that's just wasted material. So I took and I drew the design out and scanned it into my computer, brought it into my embroidery software, and then started laying the designs out to fill up that area. I made it the pattern a little bit larger so I had some wiggle room. And then once I knew where I was going to place all of the different patterns from the CD, then I started embroidering them. Now, it does take a while to embroider 212,000 stitches, so I did do it over several days. I didn't try to do it all in one day. If I did one that was a full hooping, that was all I did for the day. If I did one that had like a little hooping, that maybe just to get that corner, then I probably would do another hooping. So I didn't push myself, I just embroidered it as I pleased. And I used a stitch and wash stabilizer, because I wanted it mostly to wash out, but I wanted something in there. And I do need to wash it again because all of the stabilizer didn't wash out in the first washing. So it is a little bit stiff. It doesn't hang as flowy as I want it. So it'll have to be washed one more time. But I like how it looks, and I think it added to the design of the shirt. I also did a tote bag. Now this is a pre-made tote bag. I make a bunch of tote bags up, and the sides aren't done. Okay, they're just flat piece, but the handles are all in, everything's serged around, and when I want to do something, I have a flat bag ready to go. I can embroider on it, sew up the sides, and I'm done. So I decided to use one of those for the bag, and now after I got it done, I wish I would have want something on the back as well, but it's okay. And I did the same thing. I used the gathering of designs that I used for the top, and I did 2 hoopings on this to put the designs on that. Okay, like the way that turned out. So if you buy a bag to embroider, you do have to open the sides, because you notice I did get all the way to the seams, and a lot of people were asking that. So how did you get it in the seams there? Did you have to open it up? Yes, if you buy a bag, you definitely would have to open it up, unless you're just putting 1 or 2 of the designs in the dead center. Okay, so really like how that turned out. Okay, Gail, you want to talk about your leaves? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's with the book. I'll do it. Never mind.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
And I don't have really anything specific. Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry. I kind of intermix all of my stuff, so it bleeds.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about cutting them open.
Yeah, yeah. So the designs themselves, there's 37 different designs on that CD, anywhere from little single leaves to collections of leaves, like Lana mentioned, the largest of them being, you know, rather about 6 by 10, I think maybe it was, something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, but also in there are 6 or 7 different collections that they represent here, where they have some heavy stitching where there are black lines here. So all of these areas that are black are satin stitched, and there's 2 layers of satin stitching, and then there's straight stitching around the edge. And what they intend for that, they're calling them Tufted Satin, and you go back and you slice them open. So the color underneath will show through, and you can use a knife and a seam ripper or anything you like. I happen to use the Quick Change Easy Knife set from Fiskars. And we have many different blades here. We've got some flat blades. Those are great for buttonholes. We've got some shallow angle, some sharp angle. This is the one I used on my cutting here. We've got the handle, even some saw blades. So if you're doing, you know, some craft projects and you need a quick knife, all you have to do is flip the little orange button. You're going to tuck this in, and you're going to clip that closed, and you've got that nice blade locked in there. Okay, so you can use that, and then you can remove it, put it back in the case, and you can use another tool. So all of these have a little magnet underneath. I'll clip that back closed, tuck in there so they don't fall out, and then you can close it up and use it for something else, store it away. So nice knife set. So I did some of those tufted leaves and then sliced them open. So all of these little places here are sliced open, and they just bloom like a little bud. So it just gives you another texture. Now the leaves themselves, they can be stitched out in multiple colors to look like the ones that they have on the front cover of the package, or you can do the monochromatic look like Lana has on her shirt and her tote bag. So all different options for that. What are we doing after these? The book. So the book itself, let's see, what did we do with that? Right here. So our next book, I forgot these, is the More Weekend Sewing. This is 25 projects that you can do in a weekend. This is from Annie's. And the first one up here, I have my leaves and I have my dyed fabric. This is a little bag, and I'm going to share that one with you right here. So when I was doing that second day of dyeing with Procyon Dye, the color of the water was actually the same color as these handles. So it was supposed to be teal, but like I said, the fabric came out different. We have the green and we have the blue. But the bag itself is so cute. It's got these nice little handles, and I like the drawstring middle here. It's like a liner. So it's fully lined inside. You can even tuck this down inside if you don't want to use it at the time. But when you're ready, you can pull it out, put your items down in there, and pull the drawstrings, and then tie it up. So, cute little bag. So the front has those leaves on it. It also has that dyed fabric, and it has these quilting lines. I did this in the software, It calls for, a rectangular block of fabric, and I went into the software, created that size square, rectangle, put in my quilting lines, and then took one of the leaf designs, which has a bunch of random leaves, and just dropped one leaf in each little box. So I didn't have to go back and do my quilting later. It was all done in the hoop. Underneath this, I have Shape Flex, which is a fusible interfacing that is going to stabilize that silk for embroidery. I also have my batting, and all of that was done in the hoop. I have the King Star metallic thread, did both sides, and then pieced the bag together in with my sewing machine. So you want to do the next projects in the book, or you want me to keep going?
Finish yours.
Okay. So I also did the throw, or the quilt, that's in the book. It's also on the cover. And this was a fun, quick way to do a project. Now, when I knew that I had these fun little flowers to put on here, I didn't want to quilt through the flowers, and I didn't want to have to plan my quilting around my flowers. So I decided to piece my squares, and these are the rectangles and the strips make a block. I pieced those all together. I did all of my quilting, and then I added my little flowers on last. So they're up over the top of the quilting. They're made out of minky, so they don't ravel. And I cut them out on the Scan and Cut. And so they're just raw edge, appliqued, just a straight stitch around. I didn't have any heavy satin stitching, so you can't see where they're attached on the back. I have my flowers on the front, and I have my leaves on the back, but you can't see where the little flowers go. So fun little way to do that. Template quilted to give that meandering look, and it was a quick and easy project. Then inside the book we have all sorts of fun animals. We have turtles and chickens and all sorts of things we didn't do. But we also, I did a pot holder to match the quilt with the scraps left over from my strips. I put them together into one of these little pot holders. There's a square and a round option in the book. Inside the pot holder, we have Insulbrite. Insulbrite is going to do keep the heat in, keep the cold out, or vice versa. It's just going to insulate. I also put a layer of batting in there as well, usually when I do the Insulbrite. But it's not meant to go in the microwave. I have had that question. Insulbrite has a metal insulative piece inside, so anything metal you never want to put in the microwave. So. Okay, and then the bags. So this is the quick little vinyl zipper bag. And I also use that Shape Flex in the bottom of the bag here. Give it a little bit more body. Fun little zipper attachment. Now, if you've seen many of our previous So Fun episodes, we've had some kits from June Taylor that have the zipper already attached to some fabric. You just slip your item in there. She runs you through how to make your own fabric attached to your zipper before you make your bag, and that was kind of a fun little trick. The vinyl went all the way up inside that casing up to here, so it has a lot of nice body. Now this is the size you're going to get if you follow the directions, and if you want to, supersize things a little bit, then make it a little bit bigger. But it's great for travel because you can see everything in there, even sewing projects, whatever you like. And I think that was all my items from the book.
Okay, from that book I made several as well, and I'm going to start out with these little baskets, which I thought were adorable. You're going to piece your fabric first and then make your basket. And one of the things that they said in the book was to use the Roxanne's glue. Oh, here it is. The Roxanne's glue to put down the edge before you sew it. Made it very, very easy to keep control of that edge. And one of the questions that came up while I was doing that was somebody asked, how do you keep your nozzle from clogging up? Well, actually, it's really quite easy. Number one, they do give you this little red, almost like a price tag to clean it out, but it really doesn't, I mean, it'll get some of it out. But what I do is I go to the sink and under warm water, I'm going to fill the cap with warm water. Get that out here. I'm going to fill this little cap, take this off the end, and fill the cap with warm water, and then put my thumb on it and push, and that pushes water through that nozzle and cleans it. So I just run water through there several times and just push the water through there, clean it, recap my glue, put this all aside, and this is ready to go the next time I need to use my glue. So a great way to keep your glue fresh and your nozzle nice and clean. So I use that around the edge to first tack down my binding and then to stitch it. And I've used Roxanne since it first came out. It is excellent glue. It does not gum up your needle. You can iron it dry. It's just a great little glue. And here is the larger size. Now on the smaller size, my side seam firm, it said to use a really firm stabilizer. I used a Decor Bond, and I thought that would be firm enough. It was for the little one, but I should have used 2 layers for the big one because the big one is just a little floppy, and I think 2 layers would have been better, or a stronger adhesive stabilizer. In the book, they also had these pan covers and bowl covers, and I decided to make them and dress them up a bit. So I used the OESD Layered Leaves designs on here. And I did it with the colors instead of monochromatic like I did the other items. And then I digitized the word popcorn, and I digitized it in a loose fill so it would match what was down here. So this is not on the CD. This is something I created. Excuse me. And this is actually my popcorn bowl. So I have not been able to have popcorn for a month. This bowl has been traveling away from me, and so I now can have popcorn because it will go home with me tonight. But this is my popcorn bowl. But I do like it. The questions that came up was, what did I do underneath? And I just have fabric underneath, but if you are really going to use this to take maybe something to somebody's house, you might want to put vinyl under here so it's easier to clean. This is really just to keep the dust off my bowl because it sits on top of my refrigerator, so that just keeps the dust out of my bowl, okay? And then I made one for salad. Notice it's a little bit smaller than my popcorn bowl. And then one for veggies. Okay? I think that if you're going to somebody's house, maybe a housewarming gift or something like that, it would be great to make up one of these bowls and just fill it in with whatever you decide to write on it. So like if it was popcorn, the popcorn in there and popcorn oil and all types of things, I think it would be a great gift. Okay. Also in the book was this little pin cushion. And with the pin cushion, it goes into a cup. And when you do the bottom, it has this extra little layer here so that it sits on the cup and doesn't fall off. But I did use the Unique Stitch glue when I went to glue all the pieces together. For years, I have ignored this glue. It's been out a very, very long time, and I've never used it. It says on here, sewing in a tube. Well, I'm kind of a snob, and I have a sewing machine. So why would I want to sew with a tube of glue? So I've never used it. Well, the book suggested using this glue, and I thought, well, might as well try it. It's been out for years and years and years. So I bought it, or we brought it in, and I was quite surprised how good it was. All these years I've ignored it, and it's really a good glue. It has held everything down really well and very fast. I was quite surprised how fast it dried. So I was able to put all my pieces together really easily, and I decided that I wanted my cup to match my fabric. So I scanned in my fabric into my computer, and I've just gotten into sublimation, and what sublimation is a special printer with special ink and special paper, and you print on that paper, and then with a heat source, you fuse that into anything that has a polyester coating or is polyester, and that ink becomes a gas and infuses into polyester. So I did that on the cup so that my cup matched my fabric on top of my pin cushion on top of my cup. So I thought that turned out really cute. I'm still learning how to use all this stuff, but it is super fun and it's very addictive. I also did little Eden here. And Eden is a psychedelic elephant, okay? And I don't know if you can see those eyes very well, but those eyes are buttons that Ann Allman gave me a long time ago, and I thought they turned out perfect for the eyes on little Eden. And when I did the ears, when you turn back the ears, you really kind of have to stitch them down here, and I didn't want that stitching line showing on the ears. I thought it was distracting. So again, I used the Unique Stitch glue, and I glued the ears back right underneath the edge there, so that her ears were back, but you didn't see a stitching line. Well, Eden is one of those elephants that you just have to do more than just the elephant. So I took her pattern, the elephant pattern itself, and I made Eden a quilt. Okay, so I just took the pattern, because you notice it's much smaller, but I just took the pattern itself and I made the quilt, and I satin stitched around the edge with my sewing machine. I did not digitize that. And I did the ears the same way, and I used obviously black and more psychedelic fabric around the edge. And on the tails, I did what's called a thread wrapped vine. And what you do is you basically take your foot off your machine and have a naked machine, and you're just gonna zigzag over the tail. Okay, and just to wrap that end so it's finished off. And then I just thought she turned out so adorably cute. Just really fun little Eden there. Okay, and I think the last one we have is the pattern, right? Okay, Farm Fresh Table Runner. Okay, really cute pattern. Although I would probably never make anything, or at least a table runner like this with fruits and vegetables on it. But I do have lots of Halloween fabric, so I decided to do mine in Halloween fabric. And love the way it turned out. That was Halloween charm pack, and I did all of it from what I had left over of that charm pack. And after I got it done, when I have the backing that's black, and my binding that's black, I like to separate it. So I took Decor thread, which they don't make anymore, two strands of that, and I zigzagged that along the edge to tack down my binding and to add a little color along the edge of my binding itself. So I love how that turned out. It was a really fun quilt to do, and I'll probably go to my daughter because she does everything Halloween. So she gets all my Halloween stuff, okay? And Gail will talk about her Farm Fresh quilt as well.
Yes. So we also brought in a product called Best Press 2. This is just a little bit heavier stability than your regular Best Press. It's going to give you just a little bit stiffer result. It is fragrance free. Now you can use it right out of the bottle. It does come with the little squirt part on there. You can use it for a refill. For whatever bottle you have, including maybe a Mr. bottle. So I love these Mr. bottles. So I have mine in that, but I use that on pretty much everything up here. But it does help a lot when you're going to do a lot of cutting. So these, as I mentioned earlier, are the rainbow colors that I got out of my dyeing expedition there. So instead of Farm Fresh, in the Farm Fresh runner, I have rainbow sherbet. So who needs vegetables, right? I have ice cream. So I have my ice cream flavors, I have my cherries, I have my whipped cream, and I have my waffle cone. So I have it all quilted out to look kind of like a waffle cone, and it's just a fun runner to do. So, all right, any final notes? Did we catch all of our products here? I think we did. All right, so our first winner, for the virtual So Fun winner, we have a wonderful jelly roll here, is Pamela Hale. So please send us a message with your phone number, the store location that you would like to pick this up at, and congratulations, Pamela.
Okay, and congratulations goes out to Nancy DeCamp Lowell. You have won a fabric as well, and again, send your message to us with your phone number and store location that you would like to pick up your prize in.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well,
And I believe that's all we have today.
I think so.
Yes, thank you so much for joining
for
us.
joining
Hope you have a
us.
great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.